everyone. It's Danny here. I just wanted to let you know that this entire podcast is only about Avengers Endgame, and we talk spoilers. We talk about every part of the movie, and we don't hold back anything. So if you're not interested in finding out any spoilers of the movie, which I advise you not to unless you've seen the movie, then please just turn this podcast off and come back after you have watched the movie entirely. We do not talk about anything else in this podcast other than Endgame. So just wait until you've seen the movie, or come back next week when we talk about more TV shows and movies as well. We devoted this entire hour only to Avengers Endgame. For those of you that have seen the movie and want to hear our opinions, please keep listening and let us know if you agree or disagree, or if you have any other questions. Otherwise, enjoy our podcast about Avengers Endgame, and thanks for listening to Watching My Stories.
Danny watches a lot of television and movies. John does not. Listen in as she tells him about what she's watching, and he tries to make sense of it all. Welcome to Watching My Stories with Danny and John.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Watching My Stories. I'm Danny.
And I'm John.
And we're back.
Here we are.
I think it was 3 weeks we were off.
Probably.
Could have been 4.
Yeah.
None of it was really planned, everyone. We had family. My parents came into town for a week, so that took up those 2 weekends and kind of the weekend before we needed to prep and everything. So it wasn't exactly planned, but I think we needed it as well. So apologize for the break. So today we're going to focus on Avengers Endgame. I do have other things that have happened over these last 3 weeks to talk about. It's probably going to be a very quick blah, blah, blah at the end. And for our Actors Corner, we're doing a Movies Corner, and in honor of Endgame and the end to this entire phase of the MCU, we are going to go through our favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, ones we love, like, hate, all that sort of stuff. So stick around for that as well, because John maybe has seen
half
maybe.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
But I know of the others.
Sure.
So,
but you can't really say if you like or love them because you haven't seen them.
You know what?
You can't.
No, I know. We'll talk about that.
Okay, how do we do this?
I don't know where to start.
So we went and saw Avengers Endgame yesterday, first thing in the morning. Today is Sunday. We saw it Saturday. I had spent weeks ago, when tickets went on sale, I spent 4 hours sitting online in 3 different platforms trying to buy tickets, and it took me 4 hours to get tickets to Saturday. So that kind of sucked.
Saturday, 9 a.m.
9 a.m. first show. And we were going to record this yesterday, but we both needed really time to process and come down emotionally.
Yes.
And it was so emotional. Okay, so first thing is, everyone, we are going to spoil the crap out of this movie. We are going to talk about this movie as much as we want to. So spoiler alert, if you have not seen the movie, if you don't want to hear all of these spoilers, forward ahead. I'm going to put a bumper in the front of this whole thing telling you the time span to jump to if you don't want spoilers. But putting this in here again, spoilers, because I do believe there are a lot of people who want to hear about the movie and talk about it, or listen to other people talk about it who have seen it. I've already gone online and listened to a bunch of people and read a bunch of stories. So there's so much going on in this movie that you definitely feel like you need an after show to talk about it. So that's kind of what we're going to do. And I think it's going to be an interesting conversation because we both have somewhat similar views, but also different because you haven't seen half the movies. So anyway, okay. So spoiler alert. That's it. I've warned everyone. It's on you now. Don't get mad if something's spoiled for you, and I've warned you. Okay. Next.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, we went yesterday to see it. I think I cried through the entire 3 hours. I think there were very small amounts of time where I did not have tears in my eyes. There's a lot of laughter too. I mean, it's a Marvel movie, so there's definitely those lines and those times of laughter. But man, they went for it. And this was, for me, this was what I needed. So I think I've talked about it before. Like when I watch a sitcom, their finale, when they're ending the show, I put a lot of weight on that finale. And I can go back in time and tell you, you know, the Family Ties finale was wonderful. Fresh Prince was wonderful, but there are ones that sucked. Friends is one of my favorite shows of all time. I hated their finale. Growing Pains wasn't as great. Like there are things I can go back and I remember these finales. MASH finale, right? Everyone loves that. So it's important. It's important for so many people to have closure and to have this kind of structure where you've invested so much time and energy, right? And we have, for this universe, 22 movies. So we have spent 45 plus hours watching these characters. We have spent 10 years of our lives following them. And this is just someone who's a fan of the movies and not people who have been reading the comics for 40 and 60 years. So this was something that really had to be huge and had high expectations for a lot of different reasons, right? Infinity War, I think when I look over everything, Infinity War is probably my favorite movie of all. Kind of, and I'll explain that when we get to the movies corner at the end. But it was so amazing, right? Seeing everyone together. So then going from there into this, again, it was just, you were starting. I mean, you saw me for the whole previews. I couldn't sit still.
Yeah,
I was so excited.
Pretty fidgety.
And within 3 minutes, I was crying. I mean, the cold open of Hawkeye being with his family, and I knew it as soon as they showed us his ankle monitor. I was like, oh my God, this is before the snap. Now we're gonna have to see all his family die from the snap. And it was insane, you know.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
I think you burst into tears when it started to get dark, when you knew the previews were over, when the theater darkens for the movie. I think that's when you started. But yeah,
it's warranted.
That first scene sets the tone,
right?
And it's
because we kind of had to be reminded, and we didn't really. I mean, you know, but we had to be reminded of how that snap felt.
It was a good reminder,
exactly. Yeah. And again, to go back and see Hawkeye, because we knew something's happening to him in this movie. We had to see, did he lose everyone?
Yeah, they did that perfect because that opening scene, it was a refresher and remind you, oh yeah, here's what's happening. But it got you right back to that emotional state.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That despair that then we go into, because we see, you know, we see then Iron Man, and he's still stuck in space with Nebula. It's been 3 weeks. Now he's recording his goodbye to Pepper. Tears, 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 tears. But then there's, you know, Captain Marvel. So I don't want to go through scene by scene. I could, you know, but I want to get back to what my point was. My point was that this lived up to everything that I needed. It gave me that finale of the best finales that I can put together in anything, in any trilogy, in any show finale, all of that, because we went back, we revisited previous movies, we got to relive those moments, even though we were there for a different purpose. We visited all of their lives and their emotional moments in such beautiful ways of giving people those last moments again. Oh my God. I could cry.
I know. There you go.
And we got the battle, you know, we got the battle that we needed. And there's just, again, we'll get into the moments, the amazing, amazing moments that were just like laid at our feet and gone, here, worship this. And it was like, you do. And then the next moment comes and you're like, holy crap, there's another one.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, there was everything in this. Emotion, love, friendship, heroism, loss, laughter, battling, good versus evil. There was everything you could ever want, but it didn't feel like it was smushed into the movie. It all had its place. Everyone shined. There was not any person that was left out thinking, oh, well, they didn't get a chance to, do their bit or whatever. No, everyone got a chance to play. And the 3 hours, honestly, I could have sat there for two more hours and kept watching stuff. I mean, I didn't feel like it was too long or anything. I mean, okay, you go.
So I think you captured the emotional part of it and the feel of it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the cinematography and the movie making part of it, because look, the movie is unbelievable. The
epic,
emotion,
right? Everyone keeps using epic, and I hate to use it because everyone is, but there's actually no other way to describe something of this.
Right. So you're talking about the battle scene in Infinity War, which is epic. And this battle scene is epic 2.0.
Yeah.
I mean, it is literally
it blows
bigger
that one out of the water. Yeah.
And better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
So this was directed by the two brothers, right?
Russo brothers, yeah.
Yeah. So talk about a daunting task.
Oh, yeah.
How do you wrap up the Marvel universe that we've come to know and love for 10 or 12 years?
Right.
It is so fraught with peril because there's so many, and I'm not a comic book person, but typically comic book people are very, they have very particular things that they want.
Right.
And if you don't nail it, they will flame you online. Right. So they were in kind of a really tough spot. Right. And to make this movie 3 hours and wrap it up, first of all, the pacing of the movie was perfect.
Yeah.
The things that they took you through, all of it, it was just amazing.
Right.
3 hours did not feel too long.
No.
This could have been probably 2 movies, but I'm glad they did it.
Well, it was. Infinity War was the first part. I mean, technically, they filmed it all at the same time, and
yeah. I mean, this movie could have been two separate movies, but I'm glad they didn't do it.
No. And there's nothing that I can think of that I'm like, oh, they could have cut that and it would have been 10 minutes less or something. No, there was nothing about that.
There were several times, and since we know we're going to spoil this, there were several times after the final outcome where Iron Man has done his thing. Several times where you think, okay, this is the final scene. Right.
And I was like, no, I don't want it to be the final scene.
And then it would go on, and you'd be like, okay, so this is going to be the final scene. And it did that like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
But you didn't care.
Right.
It was so good.
Yeah.
And so well done. The 3 hours actually flew by, even though I had that thought, this could be the final scene.
Right.
Right. So.
And go ahead.
All I was going to say is it was just, from a movie making standpoint, the challenges they had because of the pressure, they knocked it out of the park.
Right. No worries.
It was just.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. So the overall point of this finale is to really pay tribute to the original 6 Avengers, right? Black Widow, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk, and Hawkeye. Did I get all of them? Is that all 6? I lost track if I was counting all of them.
Doesn't matter.
Anyway, and we did that. They truly pay homage. We get a chance to remember and love and feel and be with each one individually as well as all of them together as a team, which again is it is daunting. And as much as we have all these other people that we know and love, there's like 50 other people that are wonderful that are in this universe. It's these that started everything, and they did it perfectly. So yeah, let's get into the story a bit to explain how that really happened. So they think, 3 weeks after the snap, the Avengers are standing around saying, hey, Captain Marvel shows up. She brings Iron Man and Nebula back from space, saving their lives. Iron Man's pissed to hell. He's just so angry that they couldn't defeat Thanos. So he's no help. The rest of the Avengers are like, let's go find Thanos, get the stones back, and we'll reverse everything. They find Thanos. Thanos actually destroyed the stones. there's no hope there. But there is a wonderful feeling when Thor goes for the head finally. It's a very satisfactory moment. So then we go 5 years into the future, and the world is in despair because half of all living things are gone. Captain America is running his PTSD groups like he did back in, well, there it was Winter Soldier or First Avenger. It must have been Winter Soldier. Anyway, so he's trying to help people to move on, but then we see obviously he can't move on himself, as well as Natasha, and the Avengers are still kind of scattered, but taking care of business where they can. And Ant-Man comes out thanks to a rat. He comes out of the quantum realm. He finds the Avengers. He says, hey, I think the quantum realm could be the key here. We might be able to travel through time in the quantum realm, go back and fight Thanos and blah, blah, blah. So that's the whole point. We're using time travel to go back, find the stones so that Thanos can't get them. And it's really well thought out. It takes time travel and kind of flips the script a bit from all the other movies, which they name all the other
They poke
movies.
fun at in the movie while they're talking about it's not like that.
Right. Back to the Future is bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
But they go through, they set up their own rules, but their rules still make sense. So they don't create other universes. They don't want to create other timelines. It really is about staying within the same timeline. So they figure out all of this, and basically it's Tony Stark who really solves the problem of how to time travel and comes back to join everyone. Even though he has everything to lose. And I really love that story too, where when they go to find him to say, hey, is this going to be possible? And now we see that him and Pepper have a daughter, Morgan, and he can't even talk about it because he's so happy. He has all this to lose. And they point out, look, you're lucky. You and Pepper survived the snap. The rest of us don't have that. Most people in this world don't have that. And now he has this daughter, and and you're with him. You get it. Yeah. Why would you risk this? But, even earlier when Rhodey says, hey, everyone in this room, walks that superhero life. No one more than Iron Man, really. Again, if we go back to his movie, from the start, as soon as he knew what wrong was happening in his heart, he could not allow that to continue.
Right.
And once he knows there might be a possibility, and then once he actually solves it, that conversation between him and Pepper of, I figured it out. I figured out time travel, but I can put a pin in it and I can just put it away. And she says, yeah, but would you really be able to rest? I love that because that's what I love about these movies. We've had these conversations. There are a lot of people out there that are like, oh, superhero movies and they're stupid and blah, blah, blah. I disagree so much. I think these are such original stories, even though they're based off of the comics, but these stories are original, but it's just good versus evil.
Well, and just real quick, the interpersonal relationships in some of these movies are as good as these movies that get nominated for Oscars.
It's insane. I mean, again, if you go back to the comic books, that's why you have to read every week because of these relationships. That's what it comes down to. But then you love, every time I watch these movies and every time I see these guys and women, when I say guys, I mean men and women, just so everyone knows.
It's a generic term.
I'm not leaving out the women, believe me. When I see these people who run against everyone else to run towards the bad that's happening, I cry every time because, again, we don't have a lot of heroes in real life. I mean, obviously they exist, and I wish we paid more attention to those than the negative things that happen every day. But I love that. And this was exactly honing in on that feeling when Tony says, or Pepper even says, yeah, but will you rest? He can't. He knows now he could bring back half the world. He's not going to rest with that. So anyway, they figure out, they break into teams, they figure out where all the stones are prior to Thanos finding them. They all go back and have their jobs to do. That's where then we go and we revisit previous movies. We go to Captain America's movies. We go to, the first Avengers, the attack on New York there with Loki, and Thanos goes back to, or not Thanos, Thor goes back to Asgard and sees his mother, which is so incredibly moving. And they all get to revisit someone. You know, Cap sees Peggy Carter and in 1970, which is crazy moving. And Tony sees his dad, Howard Stark.
Not only sees him,
talks to him. I mean, again, it was cry after cry after cry after cry. Thor with his mother was just wonderful, and he's trying to warn her because she's about to be killed, and she's saying, no, you know, this is for you, this is a gift. I mean, it's all just one after the other after the other. We didn't talk about Thor either, which probably should be addressed because it kind of is the running joke of the movie. So in these 5 years after the snap, and he holds himself responsible because he didn't go for the head. He's in New Asgard, which is in Norway, where all the Asgardians that had fled Asgard ended up. He has put on weight. Yep. He's got a big old beer belly. He just drinks all day and
drinks all day and plays video games.
He's got basically dreads and a huge beard, and is not about that superhero life at that moment. But it's again, talking about good versus evil and these heroes and everything, to see a god who can be so devastated because they lost, because he made the wrong call as to where to throw Stormbreaker. It was like, again, that devastation, and talk about failure to something that we can never truly understand. To see a god feel that way. Again, it all makes sense. It's very funny to watch, but it also is devastating to know that he's just been blaming himself for everything.
In a very human way.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, wearing pajamas and a house coat at 2 p.m.
Right.
And drunk.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they all go through that. Who else? Nebula and Rhodey. They go to
Morga.
Yeah,
Morag?
where the first Guardians movie opens up and Quill is there to take the stone. They're there to go after Quill and make sure that he leads them to the stone. And Hawkeye and Black Widow, Natasha, they go to Vormir to get the Soul Stone, which we know how the Soul Stone has to be, what has to be sacrificed in order to get the Soul Stone. And that's devastating.
Yeah.
Devastating. Really sad to lose Natasha. And it's like, actually, when I was thinking about this movie yesterday, I was like, I can't believe she wasn't in the rest of the movie. You know, it was just so weird to kind of, when you're in it, of course I mourned her or whatever, and I was crying, but then it was like, when I really thought, I can't believe she didn't get to be in that battle. You know, like, I can't believe she didn't get to be part of that. It makes it even more sad when I looked back on it.
Yeah, that makes the loss more impactful.
Exactly.
That, she's not there.
Yeah, exactly.
She was gone. She was the first one to go.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So, it sounds like a great plan, right? They're going to get all these stones. They're going to collect them. We're going to snap again. It's all good. The issue is Nebula being in the same place as Nebula in that year, 2014. Her brain kind of synthesizes because she is mostly machine. Thanos finds out what's going on and he spoils the whole thing. So he ends up coming back to present day because Nebula helps him come in. And that's where then the battle ensues. And there's a fight for the new gauntlet with the stones. They do make the snap and everyone comes back 5 years later, which was also interesting that the snap doesn't make it happen 5 years ago, that everyone still was gone for 5 years. So now you're showing up going, where is my family and where is everyone? And, so that's an interesting thing that, again, is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. going to pick this up and kind of tell us about all this? So, what about the people that moved on and got married in those 5 years and now their spouse is back or, that sort of stuff. So, all of that's interesting, and we have future movies. I'm not sure how. I was reading something about this, and it also does question, because the Spider-Man movie that's coming out in July, and we saw him go back to school at the end of Endgame. If 5 years has passed, why is Peter Parker still in school? Number one. Number two, in I forget what the one is called in July, but he's on a school trip, so they're all like still in school 5 years later. So again, that's a little weird, and maybe it'll be explained somewhere along the way. I don't know. But I mean, again, it could be said that he has to finish school still, right? Because he was gone for 5 years. Let's say he was a junior. You come back 5 years later, you still have to go and finish school. So maybe that's how they're going to explain it.
Wow. Okay.
So anyway, I know.
You really think about these things.
Well, you have to, because they all go together. You have
don't.
to.
You can't have to give the Russo brothers credit, you can't have a movie with this many moving parts and have, not have something or a few things.
You can.
Such as? Well,
so the Loki thing, right? Loki changed everything when they went back to grab the Tesseract, which is after the first Avengers movie, in the Battle of New York. Thor usually takes Loki and the Tesseract home. That all got foiled, and Loki disappeared with the Tesseract. Well, that could be an open problem, or Loki's getting his own television show on Disney Plus. So does that open up because again, Loki died, Thanos killed him. So when that was announced, I was like, how is Loki going to be on a TV show? Because he's dead. So maybe this explains it. This is the 2012 Loki or whatever, who disappeared with the Tesseract. And so that's a whole different thing. So everything can have an answer, and it will be answered. It's just, these are the questions that kind of pop up as we're dealing with all these things.
Yeah. So now the more I think about it, the more confusing it is.
It's very confusing if you really get into it.
So I'm just going to say one thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw this out there. So if Loki disappeared so if they went back, got all the stones, right? They got all the stones, and they wiped out Thanos. Thanos wasn't alive later to kill Loki then.
Right.
So Loki
he was.
No, he couldn't have been.
He was. So these are different time travel rules than what we're used to.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So
it's the same thing with Nebula still being alive after she shoots and kills herself.
Exactly. Because Bruce says it in the very beginning, and I'm going to paraphrase, and it's all going to be wrong probably, but he says, first thing he says is, when you go into the past to get the stones, it's now that person's future. And that's kind of how we're looking at it. So 3 people can at one point I read a whole article on this time travel stuff to try and help me understand. At one point there are 4 Steve Rogers in a certain year, because of the original Steve Rogers we know from the movie. Then when they go back and get the stone, when he goes back and takes the stone, and now we know he goes back at the end and he decides to live with Peggy Carter and grow into an old man. So at some point he's also going to get to that year and be some age. So now there's a young Steve, there's an old Steve, there's the new Steve. It's kind of like you aren't changing anything, especially because they return the stones to the exact same place. So what has already happened continues to happen no matter what, because it's happened. So they aren't changing time, but can double up in the same timeline.
Nope.
I'll send you the article. And actually,
fine.
You guys, it was on vulture.com. So if you've seen the movie and you also are kind of questioning these rules that came up in this movie, it's on vulture.com. It goes into really great detail, all the different people, the Nebula's thing, Gamora, how is Gamora is she still existing now, even though she was killed, and blah, 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 because she jumped into the future. So now she's starting the future. So it goes into all those sorts of things, and it's really hard for me to explain, but if you go to vulture.com, you can read it and it'll help you make it through, because it is confusing. But again, there are these things that popped up, like the Peter Parker thing and Loki. So anyway, so we all know that now. Okay, so what we get to the point where Thanos is there, the huge battle happens. Hulk does the snap. He brings back everyone. We start the battle and they're losing. Thor, Iron Man, Cap, they're all losing against Thanos. And then Sam shows up in Cap's ear and says to the left, and everyone starts coming out. Doctor Strange has gathered everyone. They're all there. Everyone's there. Black Panther, Guardians, everyone we've ever known. All of Wakanda is there. It's just fantastic. And that's where the real big battle begins and ends, because now there's the gauntlet, and Hawkeye had the gauntlet. And what I loved with this gauntlet was they had to get it to the van, because the plan was now Ant-Man would take the gauntlet and then return all the stones right then and there so that Thanos couldn't get it again. And they handed this gauntlet off to like 5 different people trying to get it to the van. And it was wonderful because we got to then see Spider-Man shine because he was trying to get it there. Captain Marvel took it and she shined because she was trying to get it there. Who else had it? It was just this kind of relay race of getting it, but with kind of also the newer guys to remind us like, hey, these guys can also carry their weight. Obviously we know that, but it was nice to see them come back and have those moments. But eventually it's and fittingly, and what I was really hoping was going to happen is that Tony Stark is the one who ends up with the stones, and he's the one who ends up with the snap, and his snap at this point is to do away with Thanos and all of his minions and fighting people. But it is the Infinity Stones, over and over and over again. We are reminded in all these movies that humans do not possess the ability.
They can't
to
survive
take the power.
They can't survive gaining that power.
Right. So him not just taking them on his body, but then also the snap. It is not going to mean a good ending for Tony Stark. But I love his last words because, Thanos says, I'm inevitable. And Tony Stark saying, I am Iron Man, and then makes the snap. I'm just going to cry again because it was the exact ending I needed to this whole 22 movie deal. Starting with Tony Stark and the last words of that movie being, I am Iron Man. It was exactly the whole point of this.
Yes.
He started it all. He's always been the leader. He's the super flawed human, but highly intelligent. Obviously, all the money that he can do all these things with. He's led us through all of these battles. And it was perfect. And I don't think I can talk about the scene where he actually dies and Rhodey and then Peter Parker and then Pepper coming up to him. I don't think I can get into that. But it's beautiful, and the scenes following are beautiful. And then we see what happens to each of these guys after that. Yeah.
So that climactic scene where Iron Man dies, is followed by probably 15 more minutes of movie.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about, earlier, where I said, you kept thinking this was the final scene, and
right.
And no, but
we have to see what happened. We have to see what happens to Captain America, and he decides to go back and live his life with Peggy Carter, which I think is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, he took the stones to hide them.
He took the stones right back to where they were taken, so that way the timelines weren't messed up.
Okay.
Yeah. So he did that, and then he also decided, hey, since I'm here, I'm just gonna stay and live my life the way I wanted to live my life, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Hulk, who's now Professor Hulk. We didn't talk about that. He's now Bruce Banner has allied with the Hulk, and they get to live in harmony. So they look like the Hulk, but has the brains of Bruce Banner. So he's in the comics. He was Professor Hulk as that.
Yeah. So it's Mark Ruffalo, 9 feet tall.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so sweet.
Yeah, it was once you got past that. Oh, this is how it is.
Right.
It was very natural.
It's like, hey, we're closed now. It's like,
yeah.
So, we aren't sure exactly what happens with him, but obviously he's still there, and he's able to help Avengers and do what he needs to do. Thor ends up with the Guardians of the Galaxy. There is a comic called As Guardians of the Galaxy where he joins them. So Chris Hemsworth has been very hush-hush as to whether or not he has signed a new contract. It would be weird to end the movie where he's with them and then he doesn't show up in the third Guardians movie. That would be really strange, but I'm sure they can explain it somehow. Who else do we see? Hawkeye, he goes home and his family's there and gets to be home, which is great. We kind of skipped over the whole Ronin thing where he was assassinating everyone, but that's okay.
Not important.
Yeah. Who else? Who else is there? Is that everyone? I think that's because Natasha's gone.
Yeah.
So we assume everyone else returns home, and we're gonna get another Black Panther, another Spider-Man, another Guardians. There's gonna be a whole bunch more. Disney Plus has Sam and Bucky are getting their own show on Disney Plus. I believe Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch, I think they have a show coming on. If not Scarlet Witch, I know Hawkeye does. So that'll be good. Yeah. So yeah, I'm very interested. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comes back in a couple weeks. Very excited to see, because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. usually incorporates the MCU into what's happening. I mean, they're S.H.I.E.L.D. So are they going to do that? You know, we left off S.H.I.E.L.D. Coulson was killed, supposedly for real this time. But are they going to have been affected by the snap? Are we going to come in 5 years into the future, or are they going to ignore everything, which will be really strange because they usually don't do that. So we'll see. What else do we want to talk about? I mean,
I don't know that. I don't know what else to talk about it.
So I do want to. So in the battle scene, obviously Captain Marvel shows up. I was a little angry that she didn't show up earlier. She is in the beginning of the movie, and then she says, well, everything that Thanos did, she says, happened across the universe. And so there's a lot of planets
in the universe that don't have you guys.
Right. But she says there's a lot of people in despair, and so I've got to help them out. You probably won't hear from me in a while. So when they were assembling everyone again, I thought, why haven't they called out to her to get her home? But she shows up at the right time, and, she's awesome, and that sort of thing. So let's see. What else did I have?
So
yeah, go ahead.
Captain America.
Oh,
yes.
Captain America is worthy, which again did come from the comics. But he gets the hammer, and it's again, there are so many. If I had been home, I probably would have been standing and cheering during so many scenes that were iconic and just fantastic. And that was one of them, when we start to see the hammer flying because Thor is getting beat down and the hammer starts moving, and I was like, that's not Thor that's doing that. And I knew that, but I didn't know. We've seen Vision use the hammer, and the hammer flinched when Captain America was trying to pick it up that one time when they were all having that contest. So, then it ends up in Cap's hands, and Thor says, I knew it, and it was like, it was so, again, I think I was already crying at that point. So it was just more and more tears during this whole thing. But it was wonderful, and he takes it with him. So that's another question I have, is when Thor goes to return all the stones, he takes the hammer with him, but then stays back somewhere to stay with Peggy Carter. He brings the shield back for Sam, because Sam becomes the new Captain America, which is part of the comics as well. So he brings the shield back for Sam. Where did he leave the hammer? So, again, it opens up for, there are other Thors, or it opens up for Thor to find it somewhere, or, who knows what. But we'll see what happens with that. Everything, I know they have an answer for everything. It's just a matter of waiting and getting there and being patient.
Yeah, nothing in these movies is happenstance.
No, not a thing. Everything, I mean, again, if you go online, every name that's on a sign, every name that is on a name tag, everything is there for a reason. It all has, and it's all Easter eggs. There's nothing that is taken on just because someone felt like it.
Right.
So we had talked about yesterday, I asked you 2 questions to come up with answers. One was, what was your favorite scene of the movie?
It was Tony snapping his fingers.
Really?
Yeah. Well, there are probably several.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't seen all the movies like you have, and I'm not as intimately familiar, but I knew when Thor's hammer went to Cap.
Yeah.
I knew that was a big deal.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of the history behind it, and I think now that you said it, I remember back when they were goofing around and the hammer flinched.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, and then it didn't work, and Thor's like, ooh,
right. Yeah.
I remember that, but But yeah, that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
But then Captain Marvel showing up outside Tony's ship was big.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, you didn't see Captain Marvel, so that was kind of your first thing of really seeing
that was
her.
me meeting Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how is Tony going to get out of this? And all of a sudden, there's literally a bright ray of light.
So what we have to assume is at the end of Captain Marvel, the tag at the end of that movie, so at the end of Infinity War, Fury, before he disintegrates, he pages Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of Captain Marvel, the tag is it's the Avengers standing around after the snap, and all of a sudden Captain Marvel is in Natasha's face, and she says, "Where's Fury?" So what we kind of assume is that happened before she went to go get Tony. Was basically she showed up and they had that whole conversation. Here's what's happened. Fury's gone. Tony Stark is out there somewhere. Can you go find him? And so that's what we assume. She went and found them and brought them back, and that's why. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a good moment too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking back, I don't have the best memory. Well established. Thinking back, a lot of it is kind of a blur to me. But those are the things that jump out to me now.
I can't wait to watch it again and again and again and again. And I can't wait to watch Infinity War and go straight into Endgame because it's going to be great.
So there are two others that were really impactful to me.
Two other scenes?
Yeah.
Oh, we're still in that. Okay.
Well, and I may not be able to talk about them either.
Your favorite scene.
I know.
You need to be one.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. When Pepper closes his eyes and says, "Now you can rest."
Yep. That's why I said I couldn't talk about that scene. Now you're bringing it up.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
But so good.
Yeah.
And then at his funeral,
uh-huh,
floating the wreath out that has
has his arc reactor in it. Yeah. Well, and I love the scene with the Morgan and Happy. And he's like, "You hungry?" And she's like, "Yeah, what do you want?" "Cheeseburgers."
Yeah.
And he's, and you can tell he has that, like, he gets choked up of, "I'll buy you all the cheeseburgers you want," I can't believe I'm crying over this. It's so stupid. It's one thing crying while I'm watching it, but crying while I'm thinking about it and talking about it, it's silly.
Well, you're an emotional creature.
Which I won't be able to talk about my favorite scene because I can't.
Okay.
But for people who saw the movie, it's the scene when Captain Marvel gets the gauntlet and it's her turn to take it. And I don't remember who says something like, "How are you going to do this?" or something. And all the women come in and say, "She's got backup," or whatever it is they say. And it's to see this movie where, all these, we now have all these women. There had to have been 15 or 20 women now that were there, these superheroes. And it was just, I couldn't breathe because it was just this wonderful, wonderful scene.
Long time coming.
And to think, though, that Black Widow, who was our first, wasn't there.
Yep.
Which makes it devastating.
Well, it just that goes to show the impact of that death.
Yeah. Of course.
Because there were a lot of scenes later in the movie that you missed her.
Right.
She should have been there. She should have been there, but she sacrificed herself.
Right. Oh, God. Okay.
Big stuff.
Okay.
Good grief. What was your second question?
The second question was, who was your favorite Avenger? Especially of the first 6.
It's Iron Man.
Yeah. There's no question. Yeah. So 2 nights ago, was it? I watched Iron Man because it was like, okay, I knew he was going to die. I knew that was how this had to go. So I wanted to go back and watch the first one, which, I've watched most of these movies numerous times. So I didn't feel like I had to be part of a marathon, or I didn't feel like I had to do any of that because I've seen them so much. But this weekend, because they're on all the time, I did watch Ultron, which I love, and the original Avengers was on, which I watched, and but going back to seeing the original Iron Man and how impactful it was, and remembering seeing it the first time, and it was so badass and so wonderful, and I loved him so much, and I loved Robert Downey Jr. already so much. But to see him take this on was just fantastic. And
I mean, that character was written for him. I mean, I know it wasn't, but he was like born to play that role because it suits him perfectly.
Right.
His arrogance and his sarcasm.
But his vulnerability too.
Well, yes, and everything,
Right.
right? He's just perfect for that role.
Yeah, it's it all happened the exact way it had to happen, and Kevin, is it Feige?
Kevin Feige.
I think it's Feige.
I
think there's
so. I think it's Feige.
Anyway, the executive producer at Marvel who started this whole thing, and he has helmed the whole thing through all 22 movies, has been the visionary to say, we can tell a really long story here. You know what? I don't understand how anyone has such a capacity to see that, because honestly,
there's only been a handful. I mean,
well, you have to really understand comics, because honestly, this is what happens. You know, for years you're on the same story, and you just follow people along, and you follow along, and you wait to see what's going to happen next. And it was done perfectly. You know,
it really was.
And it was exactly the ending that we needed for this phase.
Because think about it. How often do you watch a trilogy or a sequel or something like that? Something that has 2 or 3 chapters.
Right.
Without saying a whole bunch of times, you know, well, I would have changed that. I wouldn't have done that. I would have done this instead.
And out of the trilogy, all 3 are never good. You usually sit there and go, well, the second one wasn't as good as the first, or that third one. And they never finish the trilogy entirely. You know, it's all, or you always have the hero is always standing, right? They never want the person to fail. I mean, I think that's why also like Walking Dead was such a shock to people, because we see so many people get killed off. We're not used to that. But to take something we've never had anything like this. And people want to say, oh, well, Star Wars after, 40 years and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but we're still only getting 9 movies out of that. You know, like that's still not 22 movies telling one story, even though it's telling, 22 different stories. Still, it's all coming to this. This was everyone. The Infinity Stones were in all of these movies, always against a main Thanos running things behind the scenes somewhere along the way.
They're all tied together, whether you recognize it at the time or not.
Right, exactly.
And they're all furthering a larger story,
right?
Whether you're seeing it or not,
right?
So that's really something.
As people, I've heard people say you don't have to see any of the others in order to see Endgame, and maybe you don't. I think, it's a human story at the root of everything. Will you enjoy it as much? I don't think so. But again, I don't know. So that's hard for me to say. But it's...
Well, I enjoyed it immensely, and I've only seen half, maybe.
Maybe half, yeah. Then that's good. And I think, because you have seen all the Avengers movies, I believe.
I think there's an Avengers I didn't see.
Really?
You
saw the first one.
You saw
Ultron.
Ultron, Infinity
You saw
War.
Civil War, because I sat with Civil War with you. I made you watch that. When they're at the airport.
See, that's the only scene I remember. I think I may have only seen that airport scene.
Okay. That's true, because I was watching it the other day and you said, why are they fighting? So, okay. But you saw Infinity War. So for me, I think you have to at least see the Avengers movies to see this. At least.
Yeah.
Because at least then you know the relationships between them, even if you don't know their origin stories. But that's my opinion. So who knows?
Yeah.
So look, okay, we've talked for 50 minutes on this.
Well, we kind of knew we would, because this was so epic. And if you want to just save the rest of it.
I think I'm going to save everything else I have to say for next week.
Perfectly
fine. So bottom line, 5 stars for me, obviously.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Can't wait to see it again. Can't wait to watch it over and over again. I know it'll be interesting to see how many times I watch this where I don't cry, because I'm not sure how long that's going to take, but we'll see. Yeah. So
I get it.
I know. Okay, so let's just move on then to our movies corner, and we're going to cover the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay.
And go through this. So I had a hard time really putting anything between love and like and all that. So we'll just go through it.
Yeah, I didn't have as hard a time because I've only seen half. Maybe not even.
Okay, so movies you loved?
Oh, this was obviously hard because I haven't seen a Marvel movie that I didn't like.
Right.
And I really liked a lot of them. So I'm gonna say Avengers Endgame.
Okay.
This couldn't have gone better for me.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Good.
Iron Man, the first,
Yes.
the original, and the original Guardians of the Galaxy, because that to me was so different than anything else in that universe.
Right.
It was really, I just loved it.
Yeah. Okay. I have 4.
I understand. Right?
So Iron Man, it's the first, it's the best, it's nostalgic, it's all of that. Thor Ragnarok, because again, it was I'm not a huge fan of the first 2 Thors. They were so dark and like mythological and like, you know, entranced in all this lore and all that. Like this one, just
it was fun.
Taika Waititi and his comedy. This was a comedy movie, but done in a way of a superhero movie. It was so much fun, and Cate Blanchett again
It fit into the overall realm of things, even though it was so funny.
Yeah, exactly. Avengers: Age of Ultron. I think that's this. I love all the Avengers movies because I love watching all of them together. Mm-hmm. But this was one where at that end, when they're all protecting the core and to see them all doing the battle, I freaking love it. It's just wonderful. And then I had to put Black Panther in there because it's such a beautiful movie.
Sure.
And again, epic. And to me, should have won Best Picture last year and all of that. So that's on my love.
Yeah, look, to me, there was no wrong answer in that category.
Right.
So.
Okay. Movies you like?
Black Panther.
Okay.
Thor Ragnarok.
Yep.
And Avengers Infinity War.
Yep. Good.
Yeah.
Good. So I have Infinity War on here as well. Probably my favorite. Iron Man is my number 1 out of the whole universe just because of that nostalgia, and it was first and it was wonderful. But I think if I had to pick my favorite out of all 22, it would be Infinity War. So that's on here. I also have the original Avengers movie. Mm-hmm. Just, again, that first moment where we get to see them all fighting together. Wonderful.
Yep.
And Civil War Avengers.
Sure.
Because, again, I loved that battle between Cap and Iron Man. And it really does. It makes you have that discussion of whose side you're on, and that battle again, seeing friends against friends. It was just a great thing. We just, every movie we piled more people in, and it was the first time we saw Black Panther with Civil War, and it was great. So
yeah, okay. And it was different.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Do you have anything you hate since
nope.
you haven't? Okay,
no. I
do. Didn't like Doctor Strange. Only saw it the one time. Have no desire to watch it again. If he has a second one, of course I'm gonna watch it. I haven't even heard if he's getting a second one.
Poor Benedict.
Right. I love Benedict. It was just, again, it was too much of this. It felt like I was in a lecture, trying to teach me about the whole time thing, and Tilda Swinton with the Ancient One and blah blah blah. I was like, oh. And then
Tilda Swinton.
They count the Incredible Hulk in this universe. I wasn't a fan of any of the previous Hulks until Mark Ruffalo, so I just put that in here as well because it wasn't him.
Okay.
Movies you secretly love?
No, I openly love all of them that I've seen.
I just continued my list of Spider-Man: Homecoming. Mm-hmm. I really, really, and look, I didn't like any of the other previous I didn't like Tobey's. I didn't like whatever that other Andrew Garfield's. I didn't like those movies. So I was very skeptical coming into this one. Uh-huh. Again, we were introduced to Tom Holland in Civil War before he had his own movie. Loved him in that, so I was excited for it, but skeptical. I'm glad they changed it up. They gave us a new story. Really enjoy it. Michael Keaton is the bad guy. Great, great.
Yep.
And I also put on here the first Guardians. I didn't really like the second Guardians, but that first one, again, these weird characters, fell in love with them.
Yeah.
Super funny, entertaining. And again, pushing us towards this whole Thanos thing at that point. Yes. That was where, meeting Nebula and Gamora and everyone that, his daughters are right there, it's crazy.
Yep.
So, okay. Embarrassed you haven't seen yet?
Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll watch it.
Okay.
I have seen them all, so.
Is that still in theaters?
It is still in theaters.
Okay.
We can go. and want to add to your watch list?
Captain Marvel
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
You'll like it.
It's Paul Rudd.
It's Paul Rudd. It's Lawrence Fishburne.
There's zero chance
Michael
of me.
Douglas. Yeah.
Zero chance of me not liking it.
The first Ant-Man, I almost put on my not hate list, but not like list, and it's just again, it was a lot of. It was fine. You understand the technology through the first one, but Ant-Man and the Wasp was very entertaining. So we can watch that. It's on Netflix. Okay, everyone. I'm exhausted now just talking about it again.
Man.
Did I cover everything? I think so. Okay, so that's our Avengers Endgame recap. Captain America, America's ass.
Yes.
So we're back. I'm going to save all this other stuff then for next week. I think we're hoping to go see Longshot next week.
Yeah, Longshot. Seth Rogen, Charlize Theron.
Yeah. So we'll talk about all this stuff next week. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. If you disagree with anything, please feel free to reach out on Instagram or Facebook or our website, watchingmystories.com.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good week. Bye.